I think this is incredibly important to have this kind of communication and hopefully going forward collaboration in this moment of rising global fascism. I come at all of this as an organizer, and so I've been in DSA for many years. DSA has existed since the early 1980s, when we were formed out of a merger of two organizations in the United States. One came out of the student movement of the 60s, the Students for a Democratic Society. Many of their members had gone on to do community organizing, and they were an explicitly socialist, feminist, community-based radical organization, and they merged with another organization which was composed of Progressive Democratic Party, Social Democratic Party operatives, and trade union leadership. Prior to that, we have roots in the Socialist Party of Eugene Debs, who was a trade unionist 100 years ago. But it was not until Bernie Sanders ran for president the first time that we really started to grow. We did help Bernie raise money to run for the Senate. We now have 56,000 dues-paying members, so we went from 5,000 to 56,000. We now have, instead of a few dozen chapters, we have over 200 chapters in every state in the United States. Our youth wing is now the only campus organization, frankly, whether progressive or left-wing, that's capable of standing up to the far right. We have now went from a handful to over 75 members elected to local, state, and national office. Obviously, you may have heard of the most famous ones, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, who is in Detroit, Michigan. They are both members of DSA, but we also have local elected officials in places like Montana, Pennsylvania, Texas, and in fact, 2 days ago, or this week, in Chicago, which is the third largest city in the United States, we now have 5 members of the city council. Now they are a socialist voting bloc on the city council of Chicago. So it's very exciting. It completely has changed American politics. We have a very Gramscian strategy of naming capitalism, bringing an ideological challenge to this whole system, which is interesting in the United States. And until recently, we were not taken seriously. Bernie Sanders obviously opened the window significantly more. But the other thing that we do is we build chapters rooted in communities or high schools or college campuses. Our theory of power is that we need to take state power, but also in the course of that, we need to build power in other arenas. So I always say we have 1 foot in the electoral political system and then 1 foot outside the formal political system. And that means our chapters do things like run corporate pressure campaigns. When Amazon moved to New York City, or decided to move to New York City, our chapter mobilized right off of a successful electoral campaign. In fact, they had all of their electoral canvassers shift to canvassing against Amazon, and Amazon decided to go. They decided not to come after all because there was so much public pressure. The community was organized against them on many fronts. They don't want their workers to organize. They were collaborating with ICE. We knew it would gentrify the entire community and bring in high-paying jobs and other people, not actually pay people in the community. So we were successful in doing that, and it really illustrates the kind of work that we do, where some of it's political and some of it is not. And then the third arena in which we do work is the trade union movement. In 2018, there was a huge uptick in strike activity in the United States. A big part of that had to do with the fact that there were mass strikes in the public education sector, although also other arenas. It's been a really exciting year. DSA members are teachers, and we have a whole program to help members become teachers and help members in other sectors figure out how to organize their workplaces, and members support striking workers. So the labor movement is another huge part of the work that we do. We're out canvassing in our communities, maybe working on rent control or something or maybe working on an election, but we're out there building an organized base. But that's why we need to build infrastructure to coordinate with each other. There has to be a unified left message that reframes the conversation. We're trying to capture the hearts and minds of the population and also take over the institutions. DSA, we're building, the way that we're supporting Bernie Sanders is we're doing an independent campaign. The way the U.S. political system works, the kind of organization we are, the tax status that we are, we cannot spend very much money and directly coordinate with the Sanders campaign. And rather than send all of our people just to go volunteer for Sanders, we are building our own independent campaign that's called an independent expenditure that's not coordinating at all with the Sanders campaign. And we are going to train all of our members to do the political work independently. This is what we do for local, political support. It's how we build the skills and capacity of our members to run campaigns, run candidates, run as candidates, disempower the the blood-sucking consulting class, disempower the the blood-sucking consulting class, which is very powerful in the United States. Instead, build the capacity of our own members to do that. That's what we're going to do with the Sanders campaign. And after the election, after we've won, we will have an organized base of socialists in the United States to support Sanders and push Sanders. We'll be working with Labor for Bernie, which was the constellation of unions that supported Bernie, and also union members in unions that did not support Bernie in the last cycle. But several unions have been involved in campaigns to increase, for example, the minimum wage to $15 an hour in a lot of municipalities, and have also been able to target major employers like Walmart to change their conditions. I think one of the solutions is to create our own media. The company that produced AOC's campaign ad, which is so famous, she wrote the script, but they filmed and produced it, is a couple, literally a married couple that are DSA members. It's called Seize the Means, is their production company. And they're launching a new thing called Means TV. And the idea is to provide a counter to all the right-wing, short video clips that they're always using to frame what's happening in current events. We've seen there are exciting developments. Like there's a magazine called Teen Vogue, which has been shockingly having all of this left-wing, like every week there's some new left-wing article that they have. And part of that is because Bernie Sanders and organizations like DSA are normalizing socialism. We were able to have a big impact, not alone, but we had a big impact on the discourse by strategically using social media. And luckily, Bernie Sanders' supporters tend to be, his highest levels of support are among young people, people of color, and working class people. And this is precisely who we are working to organize. The way that we're preparing for what happens, whether the way that we're going to fight Trump and the way we're going to be prepared if Bernie doesn't win, is that we just have to keep fighting and building, supporting unions, supporting worker organizing, building our own base. And we as socialists have to use new media, and we have to use organizing.